This is a video just to show the filterable table element from Smithy Elements for Breakdance. I'm going to crack on. Find the element in the same way as you normally would, and you'll get this basic start. You can obviously edit everything you see here, from colours and borders to button styles and so on, and we'll step through all of that one thing at a time as we look at the different types of table you can create. So the first type of table is the default. That basically means that we're going to manually put our information in. So if we have a quick look at the table box now, you see we've got three headers, sample 1, 2, 3. We can change that to anything we like. So let's say we're going to have a title. Sample 2 is obviously a date. You get the idea. And if I add one, it'll just show you what we're looking at. If you want to add a column, it will either be string, date or number. This is just so that it will sort in the right order. So if it's not specifically a date and it isn't simply a number, then it's a string. Even if it's a URL or anything else, it's a string. So if you want to use a date, make sure it's a date. If you want to use numbers for, I don't know, financial tables or something, then make sure it's a number, otherwise it's a string. And boom, we'll get rid of that. Once you've got your columns set up, to enter rows, you simply add a comma delimited string. So first thing we've got is title, date, and so on. So let's put another one in. I'm not very imaginative, so I'll call it second title, comma, and a date, and some more text at the end. So you see, we can pretty quickly put together a table, and there we go. So now we have a table with 3 rows of information, and you can see that our title here has these little arrows at the end in the header. If I click on those, they are basically sorting. So we can sort in alphabetical or reverse alphabetical order. If I want to be able to search, if I want to be able to sort on my date, then I need to go to my date and I need to turn the sort on. So now I can click on here and I can sort ascending or descending order of date. Now with dates, it's really important to get your date format correct. So if this was American, this would be January the 1st, because it's month and day, and this would be March the 6th. Whereas if it's in the UK, this is the 3rd of June. So obviously, even though it might think that it's sorting it in the right order, if this was for American dates, then actually these orders would be odd, random, and not quite right. So if you leave the date format here as blank, it will work according to your WordPress setup. My WordPress setup is day, month, year. And usefully, look, these are the PHP formats for these dates. So D/M/Y is the correct sort of PHP format for the date. If I want to use this date, and for some reason my system isn't set up to use that date, I can come here and I can put DMY, and I'm now going to use that date format so that my dates will format correctly. Whereas again, if I put month, day, year, it doesn't really know any better, so it will sort them, and because mine are all in different years, it looks fine. But if I had the 3rd of June and the 3rd of March, they would be the wrong way around. So just make sure if your dates don't look right or you can't understand where they're not sorting properly, make sure your date format here and here match. We'll see that again in the post queries because it comes up. Yeah, we'll have a look at them. Okay, so I mean that's about as much as you need to know for putting together a very basic manual default table. We're going to have a look now at the repeater. So with the repeater, we will choose the repeater field we're using. I set up a timeline a few weeks back, so I'm just going to reuse that. and then we add repeater fields. Now, the dynamic data here, you can't hook into the API for Breakdance in the way that you would really want to. So the next best thing is these are all text fields, but if you just use the dynamic data button, then you get your repeater information and you can choose your fields from there. So you can kind of ignore the fact that it's a text box and just use the little dynamic data button. So if I put a couple of fields in first of all, so a custom field is the headline, stick the date in, and then custom field content, and last but not least custom field image. And I have a table, and I can, if I wish to, set particular columns to be particular widths so that we can control the size of things like images or whatever. Content, if I make content just 50%, we've got a lot more room to see other things. And you can see that our alignment here for the images, it might be neater if they were in the middle. So we've got an option to stick them in the middle here. And we can put any of our fields in the middle if we want, middle, top, bottom. If you want to control whether they're aligned left or right, then you can do that in the design, which we'll look at later. So I have my columns, and now I want to be able to sort on headline and date, and I want to be able to search in the content and so on. So I start switching a few of these things on. We go down to sort and turn that on for the headline and the date, and switch it on for content. And now you can see we've got our little sort arrows in the top of each column. It means that not only can I sort them, but if I search for something, say cat, you can see now that it highlights in each of the columns that I've said I want to be able to search in. So we can see where the text we're looking for is. But I can say that I only want to search in content. So then the result that was in the headline will disappear because we're only going to see where content matches, or only look where the headline matches. And we'll only look when the headline matches. And you can see I'm doing all of this in Breakdance. 99% of the table works in Breakdance, so you don't have to keep hopping backwards and forwards to see whether it works front end. Okay, so we looked at how to do a basic default table, how to wire it up to a repeater, and that we can do our searches and narrow down those searches to particular columns. So we'll have a look now finally at the query. Not to be overwhelmed by my amazing video editing skills. Anyway, I just got a phone call, so now I'm back. Looking at the query. So similar way to the repeater, we've got a query type, so now we need to tell it what to query. I'm going to just query posts, but you can do the same old query as you would with any other part of Breakdance. So query your posts, and then we will add fields, and again you add fields similarly than we did to the repeater. So if I select the field, I can choose post title, and if I want to add another field, select the field, and I can choose my post excerpt, for example. And the one drawback is, as I said, you can't use the API like you might want to, you can't hook in where you might want to, so it thinks this is a text field. So if I choose the dynamic data, it only shows me the options for a text field, as you can see up here, where we're only allowed to see strings, but I want all of my fields, so I just actually need to click that, say I want all my fields, and I know what I'm doing, and then you can see that you've got things like the featured image or any custom fields you might have attached. Things that you wouldn't normally see, they're all hiding up here. So I can now add my featured image, and I'll just quickly make that smaller so it doesn't get in the way. And there's a couple of other things now that are available for the query loop, which set it apart a little bit. So first thing is I'm going to put my post terms in. So you can see I've now got the categories that they belong to match my categories along the top, which I'll show you in a minute. And I'm going to add a custom field that I added, an ACF field type, which has some stuff in it. So where it says in the title I have a PDF, well, it does have a PDF. But And where it says image attached here, it has an image attached in this ACF field. So again, my fabulous video editing, I switched this on while I was in the middle of tutorial, got a call, started again, left it switched on. The category filter works the same way as our filter across the top here. So if I just switch it off and remind you quickly, I've got title, excerpt, post terms. It makes sense that some of these should be searchable. If I want them to be searchable, I just need to turn sort on. You can now sort and search those. I need to sort and search in my excerpt. And do we want to search by category? It does make sense, doesn't it? So let's turn that on. So now you can see that I've got my title, excerpt, post terms, boom, boom, boom. And again, I might not want post terms. I might want to call it something else. So I'll call it cat for one of something else, so I can shorten it down a bit. And I can now search and sort in these fields as normal. And if I go to my category filter and enable it, my search and sort actually works hand in hand. So if I search for something I know that is all over the place, so you can see I've got id in the headline here and in the body text just about everywhere. So actually I only want to know when that turns up in the excerpt. So now the one where it turns up in the title, you see, isn't highlighted for the title. But I also only want to search in this category. So now I'm only searching the excerpt in this category for id, and there it is. So you can use these in combination to narrow down your search. It's quite a powerful search, really. Fairly basic, but still does the job. Okay, so post terms and metafield test also do another nice thing, which is if we go back to our fields, and just to show you that you can rearrange things, let's stick our image on the end where it makes some more sense. In our ACF field where we're returning a URL, I can tell it if I want to that I want to show that as a link. So that will then turn up in a button as a link, and we'll show you how to style that button to be more inviting in a minute. But obviously this is actually a PDF and this is a bit of audio, so we don't really want a link. What we want is a download. So choose it as a download, and we now have a clickable download button that will open or download the link target. So post terms, again, your terms, they do take you to, if you want to, the category page. So let's have those as a link. And then, as you can see, if I hover over it, you might be able to spot down here that my link opens up so that I can open that category page. Now, obviously, it's a post term. We don't want to turn it into a button that says link, but since it is a link, it will now link to that category page. So again, if this is for something like WooCommerce products, you could, as I have in another installation I built, use this table as your post archive template. So whenever you open a post archive, you actually get this table, and you can navigate this table and go to narrow down your search. But that means you can kind of put thousands of products in and make it much quicker to search your way through them. So we have a sortable, searchable, filterable by category and by column table where you can include any element you want fairly rapidly just using the Breakdance dynamic data to input it. What I will point out while we're here is you do have pagination, but this is the one area that I couldn't get it to cooperate with Breakdance at all. So if I change the pagination, it would just remove half the table and it would just be a bit weird. It works on the front end is all I can tell you. And you can decide how many items you want per page here, but whatever I put in here, it's going to have no effect whatsoever on the table itself. If I put something silly in, like 2, and I say that I want 2 numbers on the ends and 1 number on the sides, I should be able to save that. And then looking on the front end, you can see I've now got my pagination because I've only got a few results, but I can see them 2 pages, 2 pages. Ta-da! So your pagination does work, but it's not going to show you the pagination in Breakdance. It doesn't like it. So there we go. We can get our table back. Now we've looked at the mechanics where you can see how our table is built and put together, how our queries work, how to get the extra fields, and remembering that we need to make sure if we do have a date that we set the format properly. I'll just show you that actually because it's worth seeing. This is why it can be a bit odd. I'll get rid of the image and download just to make sure it loads of room. So if I put the post date in, you can see that instead of getting the sensible, well, instead of getting the system date, as I would expect it to do, for some reason, Breakdance decides it's going to return it in this quote-unquote human readable form. Now if I try adding a sort and enabling my date to sort, it's just not going to manage it. It can't. It doesn't understand what this is because it's not in either day, month, year, as I might set here, or if you remember the day, month, year, as I might set in my WordPress settings. So it doesn't understand. So make sure if I come in here to the post date and I click on it to see the extra options, you see the format, although it's blank, for some reason it's set. So if I unset it, it will revert to the system settings and you see I now have date, month, year, so 24/8, blah, blah. On the other hand, I could deliberately wangle it around and ask it to be in, that's the right way around, sorry, in American format. So now I have month, day, year, and if I try and sort on that, you can see that it doesn't quite know what to do with it. I don't know if you can see that very well, but because it thinks the day is the month and the month is the day, it can't quite sort itself out, so it doesn't do it in the right order. I can fix that by going up here and saying, actually, it's month, day, year now, and then because it knows what format it's trying to find and sort it in, it will sort it in the right order. So I can't emphasize it too often because it's bound to happen. You come in and you try and sort by date and it all looks random or wrong. It will definitely be because the formats don't match. So also worth noting, so we've got the excerpt here. You can use all of the advanced options for your dynamic data. So if I wanted to say, I don't know, if I wanted to put something in before my excerpt, it still works. There is now the word this for no reason in front of my excerpt. If I want to limit it to, say, 80 characters so that you can only see the first part of it, then it will limit it by character. And if you have an image field that you attach to it, you also get the opportunity to put a fallback image in. So you've got all of those settings available to you to use with the table. Okay, so just to have a look at some of the parts of the design that don't fit the normal pattern. In the control section, you may remember I said that we had download buttons here and stuff like that that didn't look quite right, and this looks a bit squished. They're all not quite. So again, we've got a simple button padding here. If I go in here and I set something for the button, then you can see now we've got a bit more padding, makes a bit more sense, and our download button would also match that. So this is where you can set the styles, and they do sort of go across all the relevant elements to make it easier to style things uniformly. So the bits that are quote unquote out of the norm, obviously you've got your all text here. You can put something else in there. So reset, I don't know what you call that, clear I suppose you would call that. And then on the front end, that won't say all, it will say everything. That won't say reset, that will say clear. But this is built by quote unquote SSR. Basically it builds itself by going back to the server, and your design controls don't prompt it to do that. So you'll see this on the front end, or if you reload the page, but you won't see it live. The ARIA table, so that's a description of the table. If it's a set of products, that's the default, is to say table of products. If it's a set of instruction manuals or something, you might want to say a table of instruction manuals. It's for accessibility, screen keyboards, stuff like that. So that screen readers, sorry. So that assisted browsers can tell people what they're looking at. Same with the area controls. If you want to set a specific title or description for these controls to help people understand what they do, you might want to say filter the manuals by category or filter the only look in these columns, however you want to describe it. It's just trying to open it up a bit, make it more accessible and give you the ability to control that. Otherwise, really it's just the normal controls you'd expect to find, what things look like. You can see our pagination, for example. You don't have to have borders around it. You don't have to have it looking like a button. You can just have it as normal numbers if you want to. At the moment it's got active and inactive, so whichever page you're currently on, you can make it clear to the user which page they're on by highlighting the buttons on, but you don't have to have all that on there. And perhaps something that isn't immediately obvious, let's just again search for id. So this is your highlight, and again this is your highlight. You might want to say, okay, when something is found and highlighted, I want it to be incredibly obvious, so make it massive text when it finds something in the table. So it will do that for you, or you could just change the highlight color if yellow doesn't suit your background or your table row color. So otherwise, pretty much self-explanatory. Don't want to spend a whole load of time on something which I think is reasonably obvious, and that should give you the grounding for how to build your tables. If you have any feedback, if you find any bugs, if you find any features you really wish were built in or added on, then please let me know. Come to the Facebook page or Mike at Smithy Factory UK, and I'd be happy to have a look and maybe expand it with your ideas. So otherwise, happy building, and I hope that helps. Bye for now.